Number 10. One Dumb Diver. This first story is from Reddit user One Dumb Diver, and boy does he live up to his name. His first mistake was heading out for a 90-foot dive alone, but he was just 15 years old and thought, how bad could it be? He needed to clear his head, so he headed out on his family's boat to the reef. While floating down at 90 feet, second mistake, he was only rated for 60. He saw a 3.5 meter Mako Shark. Mako Sharks, according to the diver, only have two speeds, curious and lunch mode. Guess which mode this guy was in. Divers now use electronic pulses to freak out sharks, but he was using the older method of a chainmail sleeve. They bite the metal, they think, ugh, gross, swim away. But mistake number 3. He forgot the sleeve on his bed at home. Shark bit down, there was now an open gashing wound in the water, and salt was burning his flesh. Mistake number 4. He had drifted a quarter mile downstream from his boat. Luckily, he made it to shore, and 172 stitches, physical therapy to repair his tricep, and some crazy scars later, this deep sea diver never made the same mistakes ever again. Number 9. Funny from the outside. Okay, this one is scary and funny at the same time, and yes, it also involves sharks. Sometimes fear of the thing itself makes you do some pretty weird things to avoid it, which eventually makes the worst thing happen. Reddit user NZ Viking Rugger has to wear eye contacts, which makes wearing a mask even more of a necessity. The idea of going without them surpassed any other fears, even as a shark headed straight for her. While on a dive, a friend behind her had collided with a shark and her mask was knocked off. She couldn't stop thinking about the fact that her mask was knocked off, that even as a shark headed straight for her, she was more afraid of that. Usually sharks are more curious than anything, and usually they just shoulder bump you as they turn at the last minute, but this one wasn't. She was beelining for Viking. She kept calm though, and at the last second the shark was about to knock her mask, the diver just headbutted the shark in the nose. She may be the only person to ever headbutt a 11-foot shark because she was afraid she might lose her mask. And she's alive, so good for her. Number 8. Food poisoning. I can't think of a worse time to get food poisoning than like while scuba diving. Actually, I probably can. There's probably something worse, like I don't know, in front of like your crush or something like that, but this one is definitely up there. Reddit user SomeGuy12 recounts the moment he had to deal with seeing yesterday's lunch on a deep sea dive. He was 14, a relatively new diver, and just hit 20 meters below the surface with his dad and brother. About 45 minutes out, a foreboding churning began in his stomach, and, well, he started to upchuck into the water. The worst part is that the fish surrounding him thought it was lunchtime. Like they were like, wow, look, sandwiches. No one was within arm's reach, so he had to keep clearing his regulator, puke, and then repeat until he was like all clear. No one noticed, and he just kept on with the rest of the dive. I am as horrified as I am impressed with his perseverance, but like, dude, go up to the surface. That's enough. Number 7. Shark rescue. Being a rescue diver means you often have to put yourself at risk in order to recover people who got themselves into trouble. Keith Baugh is a rescue diver in the Bahamas, and he was on a mission to find a missing diver. He was submerged in the infamous blue hole in the Bahamas and finally caught a flash of the diver's watch on his arm. He started swimming to the bottom and began to notice that the bottom was moving. An entire school of sharks were swimming right over the body. It was breeding season and there were so many sharks he couldn't see the bottom. He found the diver though, and as quick as he could began swimming up to the surface. Thing with diving though is if you rise too quickly you could get something called the bends, aka decompression sickness. The shark started following him, and when he reached 70 feet he had to take a break to adjust, and therefore spent 8 minutes surrounded by a school of sharks with a dead body in one hand. Like how he got out of there without turning into shark food is pretty astounding. Number 6. Shipwrecked. Tom Pritchard had over 1,000 dives under his belt, was known for being incredibly detail oriented and cautious. Nothing should have gone wrong, but of course something did. Just what remains a mystery. Pritchard was working on attaching a mooring line to the Andrea Doria. The Andrea Doria is a shipwreck 300 miles outside of New York. When the line was attached, the other crew members explored the wreck before rising 75 minutes later. But where was Pritchard? The Coast Guard swept the area but no one was found, and in the end, the captain ordered the crew not to return to look for him. After all, they had no idea how he disappeared, so going back down there could be even more dangerous, they could lose more people. The Doria has always been considered dangerous and has claimed 15 lives previously. As the years go on, the wreckage continues to get less and less stable, but whether Pritchard was trapped by the ship or died due to equipment failure, no one will ever know, and it just is... no one will ever know. Number 5. Snake Island. The problem with deep diving is that if there is a problem, you can't just rush up to the surface or you might literally explode internally. Decompression sickness. So staying calm is paramount, but it's not always enough. 3 divers decided to take on a 180-meter dive in Snake Wall in the Georgia Strait. One of the men stayed in the shallower area while the other 2 decided to dive as deep as they could. While they were down there, something happened, something went wrong, and while the second diver almost made it to the surface, he too perished as well. They were experienced divers, they wouldn't have been able to go in there if they weren't, so just exactly what happened to the 2 at the bottom still remains a mystery, because it could have been as simple as an equipment failure, but there's no proof. Number 4. They checked no. There is a reason why high-risk activities require you to sign and fill in a waiver or consent form. They ask about your health because you or someone else could be put at risk because of it. This one diver decided to check no on the form when it asked if they had epilepsy. Flash forward to a seizure attack in a pitch black cavern 85 feet below the water. In this story submitted by Reddit user Sharkbite, they noticed one of the diver's lights weren't moving. After heading over to see what was wrong, they noticed that the diver had no regulator in their mouth, which is the breathing apparatus, and their eyes were completely checked out and their teeth were clenched together. They forcibly purged the air into their mouth with the regulator, which moved their cheeks enough to indicate air was going in. That was good enough for them. The rescue diver then grabbed their arm and swam up straight 60 feet to get them to surface, risking the bends. Once to the shore, the rest of the team helped get their gear off, and though in shock, the diver recovered like nothing happened. Thankfully, they were only 10 minutes into the dive, otherwise they would have both ended up sick. The rescue diver was put at risk, shooting up to the surface to save them both, and said they would do it again if need be. And I mean, I would too, but like, boy would I be pissed. Hopefully this person didn't discover that they have epilepsy below the water. That could be a thing too. But if they knew and didn't say, someone's gonna get a stern talking to. Wow. Number 3. Sanctum. Even the most experienced divers can encounter deadly complications on dives, and to this day no one knows what brought Agnes Maloka down. Agnes was a stunt diver who had a fierce desire for underwater exploration. By age 29, she'd been featured in multiple documentaries and even acted in the movie Sanctum. But while on a dive in the Tank Caves in Australia, even her expert navigational skills were no match for the sinkholes, caves, and silt. Somehow she became separated from her diving buddy, and silt from the cave walls disrupted her vision. If you breathed too hard, the air bubbles would pop and disturb the ceiling and it would come crashing down. The following day, they found her body 500 meters from the entrance of the cave. Evidence suggests that she remained calm until her last breath, but no one knows what the exact reason was for her struggle. It could have been she ran out of air. Anything could have happened, but either way, she lost her life. Number 2. Pluto Caves. Norway's Pluto Caves used to be a spot where experienced divers would test their mettle, but ever since this incident, they have been closed indefinitely. In February 2014, several divers prepared to make the long trek to the other side of the cave, but 135 meters down, they lost 2 of their members. One member, Jari, got stuck halfway in a narrow passage, which caused immediate panic. That far down, that's a very dangerous thing. Fellow diver Patrick handed him an extra cylinder to prevent hypercapnia, which is excessive CO2 in the bloodstream, so like hyperventilating, but Jari panicked while switching and he drowned right in front of Patrick's eyes. Can't imagine that. Patrick did everything he could to stay calm and had to keep moving, but behind them, divers Kai and another man named Jari were due for a shock. Jari saw the body of Jari and panicked even though Kai tried to help him, and sadly Jari succumbed to the same fate. With the passage now fully blocked, Kai had to trek 11 hours back the same way he came all the way to the start. 2 months later, Patrick and Kai went back secretly to recover their friends, in which they succeeded, but no one else is allowed in those caves ever since then. Number 1. Dion Dryer. And last but not least, the tale of Dion Dryer. If this story doesn't haunt you, I don't know what will. Dion passed away in 1994 when his body was lost 270 meters in Bushman's Hole, South Africa. For 10 years his body remained there, but extreme diver David Shaw decided it was time to bring him home. But the dive went nowhere near as expected. With Shaw's experience in situations like this, there wasn't a doubt in anyone's mind he'd be okay. Shaw assembled a team and made the descent 270 meters down to find Dryer. But when Shaw tried to put the body in a body bag, the skeleton started floating due to the wetsuit Dryer still wore. At those depths, any panic or disorientation could be deadly, and indeed it was for Shaw. As he wrestled with the body and began his ascent, his light got snagged and he panicked because he already overexerted himself. Dave eventually passed out, and before long Bushman's Hole claimed his life as well, but almost poetically, the two bodies floated up to the surface together. Shaw made sure he fulfilled his mission even with his last breath.
Kicking off the list at number 10, let's dive in. Barracuda. Exploring the deep is dangerous if you're a diver, of course, not because of the deadly ocean life surrounding your every direction, but because if you come up too quickly, major health problems will follow. But if not that, probably a deadly barracuda, equally as scary. This deep discovery was made by user Arira95. I'm pulling real events for this one from real deep sea divers. We're going to the real content for this one, so buckle up. One time when my parents visited Mexico, they went diving and my mom was slightly lower than my dad looking at the ocean floor. My mom had on a gold necklace that was floating in the water around her, and it was a sunny day and a fairly shallow dive at this point, so it was sparkling. My mom looked below at all the critters when my dad grabbed her and started frantically shaking her arm to get her attention. I'm sweating reading this. She looked up and a barracuda was directly in front of her, staring intently at that shiny necklace. She slowly moved up her hand to cover the necklace, and they slowly and calmly moved away from it, and it took off without bothering them anymore. But still pretty unsettling, and taught my mom to be a little more aware of her surroundings when she's diving. I mean, fair, but I mean, no one expects a barracuda. Also, if your mom wants to dive with chains on, that's pretty sick. You won't catch her slacking. Even in the depths of the sea, she's like, I'm ready. I don't care who shows up. I don't care who I bump into. Water shoes and bling. Check and check. Let's go diving. Number 9, venomous sea snakes. Last year in the deep waters off Australia's coast, of course it's Australia, always Australia, a sea snake that was once thought to be extinct has been rediscovered. How fun. He's like, psych, you thought. Just when you thought the ocean couldn't get even more dangerous, now we got new sea snakes to worry about. The short-nosed sea snake hasn't been seen in 23 years, and they would often live near Ashmore Reef. But last year, divers found one 67 meters below the surface in the twilight zone, which is pretty wild. Just lurking in the dark, just hanging out, meditating. The Australian Institute of Marine Science is responsible for this discovery, and the team calls this a second chance to protect and further understand the species. And an up-close personal encounter is brought to life from this diver. Apparently, this happens from time to time before major storms. Snakes can sense an oncoming storm, so what they try and do is latch onto something heading in the direction towards shore, so they don't have to burn energy and they can just grab onto like a barrel or something and then just, make its way there. Pretty smart. So this diver was exploring, nothing was going crazy or anything like that, and then he felt a snake wrap onto his leg because he felt a storm was coming in. The diver didn't even know that a storm was coming. The snake did, and he wrapped its snake self around his leg. As soon as I was in the shallows, it uncurled and headed up the beach where it hid under a breadfruit tree. That was from a diver named Specialist Celery. Great name, also terrifying experience. I don't like snakes in water or on land. Next, number 8. Surprise tiger shark. Yeah, not something you want to see diving in the deep. A tiger shark. A glowing shark, left shark, I don't care. I want none of the shark smoke. This deep sea discovery comes from user Stormcutter. Sick name, a little bit better of a diver name. They say, I know a guy who was out diving for crayfish and lobster by the ocean. Also, the I know a guy trick, it was totally you. Don't lie to us. Crayfish often hide under the rocks, so as he was diving, a tiger shark emerged from a cave and rammed him, breaking his arm and ribs. This guy got shucked by a shark. That's insane. He said the shark was testing him out. Yeah, I'd say. That's pretty sweet, man. I'm glad you survived, honestly. I bet you couldn't wait to tell people what happened. You're like, oh, my ribs? Yeah, I got sideswiped by a tiger shark. Yeah, he's feeling testy. You know how tiger sharks do. If you're wondering what that experience may have looked like, this is footage of a rare tiger shark in New Zealand, lurking in the deep. Number 7, Humpback Mama. This deep dive happened about a year ago. A diver named Sidetrack38, that's their username, not their legal name, although that would be pretty sweet, Sidetrack 38. He's like, what's up? They were exploring the ocean one afternoon when all of a sudden they got charged by a mother humpback whale. The divers shared their experience online, saying her curious calf had swum around us and we were between her and the calf. Two of us never even saw her coming. We were watching the baby, but our third diver saw her come. She kicked down and swam under us last minute. We didn't see anything until that 60-foot freight train passed just underneath us. Whales are beautiful. They're beautiful but terrifying creatures, my friend. Glad you didn't get a broken rib or back in this case, because whales, they like to go pretty deep.
Just view.
Just trying to figure us
Incredible.
out. Yeah, this is amazing.
Justin, you want the overheads off?
Look at that view. I hope we're getting screen captures of this.
Number 6, Mako Shark. Mako sharks are one of the fastest sharks in the world. I'll start by saying that. Just get that fact in your head. Given this list so far, I would also start sweating if I were you. This is a scary one. This deep dive horror story comes from username One Dumb Diver. Great name. They clearly made this account just to share this occasion, so let's dive in. Nowadays, we dive with shark shields, which emit electronic pulses that freak the sharks out and keep them away. But back then, what we used was essentially a chainmail sleeve. The idea being that sharks hate the taste of metal, so if you give it your arm, it'll bite down, decide you're gross, and then move along. So I wait, it comes over, and I make a perfect move to give it my arm. However, just before the crunch, it occurred to me that I had left my sleeve on my bed. Now I had a huge open, gashing wound on my arm from the bite in open water, and I trailed blood everywhere. Not an ideal scenario. So once the shock finally wore off, you realize that you're in salt water, and salt and open wounds, they don't feel good. In a panic, I dropped my weight belt and shot up to the surface without any sort of waiting period. Not great. Because I hadn't been paying attention to the currents, I was approximately a quarter mile downstream of my boat, which meant that I had to swim back up to it. After getting bitten by a shark, imagine having to swim, that is a nightmare scenario. Glad you're okay. Also, you're not a dumb diver, you're experiencing the things, you're figuring it out. You're doing great. You're brave. I don't even like going in lakes. Number 5, more sea snakes. Coming from Patrick667 about a year ago as well, they posted, so 3 days ago I went snorkeling off Mimba Island in Zanzibar. Everything went normal and we started heading back, so I grabbed my net and I put my black fins, my black mask, snorkel, and black wetsuit inside. Once back ashore, I grab my bag, jump off the boat, and head to the rental office to return said equipment. At that point, I feel my bag is moving somehow. At first look, it seemed like a flat black worm squirming quickly. After rotating the bag, I realized I was looking at only the tail of a 1 meter long black sea snake, one of the most venomous reptiles ever, trying to get out of the net. Like in the lobby. How it got there, I have no freaking clue. That is a nightmare scenario. Imagine being like, thanks so much, I had a great time. Here's a sand dollar. Also, don't mind the venomous snake. Number 4, the frilled shark. Back in 2004, marine biologists discovered this dinosaur, the frilled shark, just hanging out, just lurking about 870 meters below the surface. So if you're anywhere around there, watch out. This one looks like an eel almost. It's so scary looking, it's so slippery and quick. Frilled sharks can grow up to 7 feet long and they fight in the dark. They don't need to see to attack you, which is pretty terrifying considering all these deep dive stories are all in the pitch black. So unless you're a deep diver, you're not really gonna run into the frilled shark. Have you ever dealt with one of these? Are you a diver? Are you watching this because you're a diver? Please comment down below if you are. Comment some of your personal experiences. These were a nightmare to read. I couldn't even finish half of them. Everything is so dangerous and so fast underwater. Number 3, snapping shrimp. This little guy can literally create a sonic boom as it attacks you. That's how fast it is. You won't see him coming, and neither did this diver. Here's a clip of a mantis shrimp punching through a diver's gear. Yeah, right through their water shoes. Bam! They're so quick. Oh my god, they're tiny, but they really hit. They're often found in coral reefs, oyster reefs. These little guys, these pistol shrimp, they hit their prey at 100 kilometers per hour. And in doing so, a large air bubble is created, and because this, Mike Tyson shrimp is so quick with the left hook, the following pop is around 200 decibels. The sound alone can stun its prey, and if they're lucky, it sometimes kills them. That's how you want to go out. You don't want to go out with one of these Superman punches to the neck. Number 2, comb stars. Ocean life is by far the scariest thing out there. We have no idea what's in our oceans. We discover some crazy shit every year. Some deep sea fish with bioluminescence are for sure aliens, while others are just natural predators that look scary. Like the comb star, for example. This guy was not in Finding Nemo. He would have been a weird addition. A comb star is a starfish that contains tetrodotoxin, which is this deadly neurotoxin that can cause paralysis. Yeah, Finding Nemo, that movie would be over in 8 minutes if this guy was there. Per every gram of comb star flesh, there's enough toxin to take out 500 mice. So if you have a mice problem, Honestly, you can call one guy. It's a very specific weird call, but I know how you can do it. A little bit of tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin? Tecrodotoxin. That's what it's called. And finally, coming in at number 1, the electric eel. Awesome. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. Great. The moray eel, first of all, don't do what he just did. Don't go up to a random eel and start rubbing it like it's a genie lamp. That's not smart. It's not a Great Dane. You don't want to do that. That was the moray eel. That one can bite your fingers off in like 2 seconds. But you should never touch an eel in the first place because a lot of them are electric. Yeah, just like that MGMT song that's now stuck in our heads. As its name suggests, there's types of eels that can mess you up even if you were to get the first hit. Specifically, the newly discovered 2.5 meter Electrophorus volti, appropriately named after Alessandro Volta, aka the guy who invented the battery. This eel can release a shock up to 860 volts, which is more than 7 times the voltage of a wall plug. A swimming wall plug that gets hungry. Nice. We love nature. I'm never swimming again.
Coming up at our number 10 spot, we have the ghost shark. The ghost shark lives in the deep ocean and lives for about 30 years. It looks like a ghost, but arguably even scarier than one. It eats primarily crabs, shellfish, sea urchins, and octopus. Apparently, these fish have been around even longer than dinosaurs. Their big eyes can appear dead in the water, but glow when they are exposed to light, giving them that ghostly look. In our number 9 spot, we have the Atlantic wolfish. The Atlantic wolfish kind of looks a bit like a blob with very sharp canine-like teeth. So sharp that it can crush the shells of sea urchins and crabs very easily, and that is what they eat. They can live at depths of 2,000 feet, and apparently they can produce an antifreeze that keeps their blood pumping in freezing water. This fish's overbite and general scary look definitely terrified us humans when we discovered it. In our number 8 spot, we have the red-lipped batfish. This fish is found near Peru at the depths of 10 to 249 feet. They eat small fish and small invertebrates including shrimp, crabs, worms, and mollusks. They aren't good swimmers, but they use their pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins to walk on the ocean floor. Like this. Anal fins. What? I'm 5. I wonder if whoever discovered this fish was more confused than scared to have found a fish that literally looks like it's wearing red lipstick. In our number 7 spot, we have the dragonfish. The deep sea dragonfish lives about 2,000 feet below the surface and is most certainly a ferocious predator. I mean, look at their teeth. They are clearly born to be fierce. They are quite long, coming up on 6.5 inches, and yes, they do have wing-like fins, which is definitely why they were called dragonfish. They are also called the sea moth, which, yeah, no, that makes them seem less cool because, you know, moths are a pain. So we're gonna stick with the dragonfish. Little is known about their history thus far, which is just another reminder that the ocean is huge and we have so much more to learn. In our number 6 spot, we have the Dumbo Octopus. I can't think of the Dumbo octopus without thinking, aw, so cute, it's like Dumbo. It has protruding ears that are like fins, and that is why it was given the name. Its fins act like propellers and propel them upwards, like so. Personally, I don't think this creature is very scary, maybe because the cute name put it in a positive light, but if you are someone that feels uncomfortable looking at a cluster of dots, don't look at its legs. I am that person, and just looking at its suction cup identical legs made me a tiny bit queasy. Apparently there are about 15 different Dumbo octopus species, which is pretty cool, and also they live in the depths of at least 13,000 feet. They are the deepest living octopus known to man as of yet. They measure to about 8 to 12 inches and they can measure to about 6 feet high. They are quite hard to spot as they are known for their ability to camouflage. Pretty cool. In our number 4 spot, we have the giant squid. The giant squid is indeed giant. It is 40 feet long, that's about 12 meters. Yeah, this definitely scared the breath out of some divers somewhere upon its discovery. It is one of the largest animals without backbones in the world. They live at depths of 1,000 to 2,000 feet, which definitely has made them hard to study. Apparently, they also have the largest eye in the animal kingdom, as their eyes are about 10 inches in diameter. They are carnivores, so they usually eat deep sea fish, young sharks, smaller squids, and humans. Just joking, but honestly, I'm sure if they had the opportunity to eat you, I bet you they would. In our number 3 spot, we have the Gber Eel. Okay guys, let's be real, a diver wouldn't be able to see most deep sea fish because, well, we can't necessarily dive into the deep sea yet, lol. However, I'm sure divers have seen them via pictures and after being captured in deep sea fishing nets, so there's that. The Gber Eel is one of them that was most likely seen because of a deep sea fishing net. This fish has one large mouth, and its mouth is bigger than its whole body, which makes it a tad scary to look at. It usually feeds on small crustaceans, so there's really nothing to fear. It wouldn't eat you. It has a long pink fluorescent tail that helps attract prey with its light. I personally think it is quite chilling to look at and would love to know if you agree in the comments section below. In our number 2 spot, we have the Hatchet Fish. So many scary fish. I'm gonna have to put on something funny after this, like The Big Bang Theory. My newest obsession. I know I'm late to the game, whatever, your girl is a late bloomer. The deep sea hatchet fish basically looks like an alien with its big bulging eye. Oh, and you know, it glows in the dark. Yeah, glows. Pretty cool. Which honestly makes it maybe one of the coolest fish. Cool, but terrifying. It has a row of luminescent organs lining its belly. It apparently mimics daylight above, which throws off predators below it. They live at depths up to 3,200 feet. They have a pretty large mouth that is tilted upward and opens wide to scoop up meals. In our number 1 spot, we have the Goblin Shark. When this shark was discovered, surely everyone was terrified. It literally looks like a goblin trapped in a shark body. This creature is one of the most scary looking deep sea creatures that I have ever seen. Apparently they can be as long as 4 meters, but some hypothesize that they can be longer. They have very long snouts and protruding mouths that hold many teeth that contribute to their scariness. They can crush their prey, such as shellfish, easily with their teeth. They can eat a fish whole, and that is usually what their diet consists of: rat tails and dragon fishes. They can weigh up to 460 pounds. Their lifespan is quite long at 30 to 35 years. Even though it looks quite terrifying, it does have a flabby body with small fins, so it can have quite sluggish movement.
At number 9, she died instantly. Posted by u/waboosh. I was diving with a mom, her husband, and their son on a night dive. I don't know how many dives they'd been on, but the mom, for some reason, decided to go up without signaling anybody why. She did the thumbs up, which is the signal meaning that she needs to go up, and the dive instructor signaled back asking why she just went up. So the guide is trying to get her to come back down when a boat comes across and runs her right over. It was a big dual motor. There was all kinds of bodily fluids everywhere, and we had to rush out because there was a lot of sharks in the area. She perished instantly, I assume. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing the notification bell. At number 8, a jelly got stuck in my swim trunks, posted by u/hohatu_. Nearly all of my dives have been excellent, with only a few moments being scary. However, during one dive, something happened that wasn't really scary in the way you might be thinking, but it was pretty bad for me. Put it short and bluntly, a moon jelly got stuck in my swim trunks. Its stingers were in contact with my upper thigh for nearly a minute. Probably less than that, but it felt like a long time. It was terrifying coming up from an excellent night dive only to feel a certain something float up into my swim trunks and continuously sting my leg. Seeing all the other moon jellies hovering in the water after seeing the thing was no fun either. Nor was getting back to the boat when I could barely move my leg. I had really bad marks on it for almost a week and walking was difficult. Thankfully, moon jellies are pretty harmless. Usually you brush up against them and it feels like a bee sting and you go on your way. Except this one felt like a really bad bee sting for an extended period of time that was dangerously close to my family jewels. At number 7, saved someone from drowning while scuba diving, from u/sharkbite. A person had an epileptic seizure at 85 feet of water in a pitch black cavern I was diving in. I was hovering just above when I saw the flashlight move. I swam down and was met with other divers with no regulator in their mouth, their eyes open, just on their knees. The diver's buddy was next to them and in complete shock to what was going on. 15 years of diving instructor training came over me like it was second nature. I thought her regulator just came out, so I popped mine out and offered it to her, but then I noticed that she had mentally checked out. I popped my regulator back in my mouth and attempted to put my number 1 regulator in hers, but her teeth were completely clenched. Then I pressed the purge button to get air into her mouth and noticed her cheeks were moving, so I know air is getting in there. That was good enough for me. I grabbed her under her arm and the regulator flowing in her mouth, and I swam to the opening of the cavern and then up over 60 feet to get her to the surface. As I'm towing her in, she's regurgitating all the water that she swallowed and inhaled, and it seems like gallons of water at this point. Got her to land where the other divers assisted me in getting all the gear off. The crazy thing is that she didn't tell anyone she had epilepsy, and when we later reviewed her content on the forum, she checked off no to epilepsy. I put myself at risk by shooting up to the surface like that, but if I came across that situation again, I would not hesitate to save someone's life. At number 6, the Blackfish. Here on the Brazilian coast, there's a fish that resembles a shark, but it's considerably smaller, called caçao. You have to hunt these little guys at night because they're sort of nasty in the open, so it's easier to shoot them when they're in their coves. So my friend, let's call him Reggie, is about 1 kilometer from the coast, diving near a reef. This thing is massive, and you have to go really deep to get the slope on with the caves. Reggie said he had a feeling while descending that everything was off. The smaller fish were absent, there were no turtles, the water was murkier than usual. His partner stays back with the flashlight, and he gets closer to the reef. Reggie searches for the fish, but can't find any of the caco he wants, so he takes kinda long, and after a certain point, he feels a shift in the water like something big is swimming near him, just as the weak light from his partner waves frantically and then turns off. He doesn't know what to expect, so he goes into fight or flight mode, except he can't ascend too fast, so he tries to stay at the same level, then he cocks his harpoon, and he waits. He waits and waits, but he doesn't see anything murky in the seawater, not even his partner's light. That had to mean one of two things. Either his partner went out of batteries, or he saw something and didn't want to attract its attention. Reggie finally decided to start ascending very slowly. The weird feeling got worse and turned into chills, and as he was going up, he felt that same shift again, and did not hesitate to harpoon whatever it was, but he missed. He said he never saw something so big underwater, and it swam fast. Reggie couldn't make out much in the dark, like a proper shape or anything, but he noticed that the thing went deeper near the reef, so he tried to go up as fast as possible and make it up to the boat where his partner helped him up. Turns out his partner tried to warn him about it with the light because he saw something, quote, abnormally big swimming in a dangerous distance, but couldn't get to him because he felt like he was washed by the thing. They both called it the Blackfish since they couldn't really see what it was. It was said to be as big as a man, about 1.7 meters. At number 5, the Moray Dragon. Oh god. An old WW2 ammunition ship off the south coast, England, was full of brass topped with shells. This pile of shiny brass metals was miraculously untouched and remarkably clean after spending years underwater. Out of the murky darkness, the largest moray I have ever seen snakes forward without exaggeration. This thing had a head the same size as a horse's head full of jagged teeth. I couldn't see the body as it was looped into the dark and deeper into the ship. No one got near those shells. As it turns out, for years this thing's been guarding these shiny brass shells, slithering over them, making them shine. We found out at the bar later that he was famous in the area, and many people went to the wreck just to see him. No idea why this giant creature was guarding them like a dragon and its horde, but some said that morays are like magpies and like shiny things. At number 4, Don't Free Dive Alone by u/Bantam. When you're free diving, you come up slowly more to conserve energy and air. You haven't breathed compressed air, so you haven't taken on much nitrogen. Repetitive deep free divers can get bent, but it's pretty rare. You can come up as fast as you like, but the 10 meter to the surface pressure gradient is high, so you have to be super careful. And if you don't have enough O2 in your bloodstream, when you come up, sometimes your alveoli can rob O2 out of your bloodstream to keep the right lung balance and make you pass out. I did have one scary incident where I should have probably perished, and this is the Don't Free Dive Alone, folks. Warning. I was down at 20 meters taking photos of an octopus alone. I was probably down there for 2 minutes or so and maybe overstayed my welcome. I started to ascend, but the panic really hit, and stupidly, rather than letting the buoyancy take me home, I gave in and started finning hard. Fatal mistake. This starts to use up large quantities of stored oxygen in your blood, and thus you become depleted. When I got to about 6 meters, I remember feeling lovely and warm, like the sea was giving me a warm blanket hug. My wetsuit felt lovely and I felt frizzy, and the next thing I remember is finning out at the surface and shaking. I was finning, trying to keep my head above water, and eventually laid on my back and floated. I had passed out at 6 meters, and the wind had resuscitated me when I got to the surface. If it hadn't been windy, I most likely would have been dead, as the wind told my lips and the receptors that I was above the surface, which is why you're taught to blow on people's lips and faces to bring them back around as free divers. At number 3 is bad air. I was 18 meters down when my air went bad. It had a weird metallic surgery taste to it, and I started losing consciousness. I pointed myself up and pulled on my BCD, which is buoyancy compressor, and about 6 meters from the surface, I blacked out. When I woke up, I was being hauled into the dive boat. I blew both my eardrums, and I haven't been able to dive since. I got very freaking lucky. I could have drowned. At number 2, picked up a Venomous Hitchhiker. Diving the day before a hurricane on the small South Pacific island when out of nowhere a black and white sea snake, which was venomous, wrapped itself around my arm. Apparently this happens from time to time and before major storms. They can sense it and look for things that are heading towards the shore so that they don't have to put in so much effort to get out of the sea. As soon as I was in the shallows, it uncurled and headed up the beach where it hid under a breadfruit tree. At number 1, the undeniable feeling of absolute dread. I'm in the Atlantic. Depth is about 30 to 50 feet with a lot of pocket reefs around. I swim away from a reef to see what's in that direction. Visibility about 40 feet. In front of me at the surface, right at the edge of visibility, I see a massive body. What I can see is around 2 or 3 feet thick, about 6 to 10 feet long. I can only see a body and I can't see a tail or a head. It's a light silver with something darker or golden brown stripes. It was only there for a second and it must have been turning to go the other direction and I only saw part of its body. And I had never seen anything like that. I was curious and intrigued. I started to swim towards it to see what it was. I got right about 12 feet in that direction when a fright came through my entire body. It was a primal, undeniable feeling of absolute dread and horror. My body was telling me that whatever that thing was, I needed to get the hell out of the water as fast as I could. I stopped swimming towards it and immediately pivoted back towards the boat. I swam on my back so I could keep looking behind me in the direction that thing had been. I don't know what that thing was, but it was massive. It was a giant and I was a fly. Some part of my animal brain knew what it was and knew that it was a danger.
Number 10. Yellow Brick Road. Deep sea divers may have found the road to Atlantis this year. Yeah, this is a good one. May 2022, this bizarre path was spotted in the Pacific Ocean after an exploration vessel, Nautilus, caught the rocky formation next to Hawaii. The exploration team said in a recent interview with WeOn News that our corps of exploration have witnessed incredible and unique, fascinating geological formations while diving on the Liliuokalani Ridge. The 90-degree fractures are most likely the result of eruptions from long ago. But volcanic activity, it's not a yellow brick road after all, but it is cool to look at. This area of the ocean is the largest fully protected conservation area in the world, and this explains why. Literally, there's Wizard of Oz stuff happening below. No one wants to tell us anything. Covering more than 580,000 square miles. So far, we've only discovered 3% of the seafloor, so I'm sure there's many more discoveries coming our way. Number 9. Norfolk's Royal Shipwreck. Okay, so this initial discovery happened way back in 2007, believe it or not, but it was a secret until recently. Now I'm here to tell you all the tea. On May 6th in 1682, a ship called the Gloucester got stuck in a sandbank off the coast of Norfolk, and then an hour later, she sank. Now one of these passengers was the future King James II of England. He escaped in a small boat, thankfully. Quick decision that literally changed the course of history. These two diving brothers found the ship back in 2007, but now it's official, now it's confirmed, so now we could talk about it. Just last month, it was officially announced. This was the lost ship indeed. Maritime expert Claire Jowett calls this recent discovery the single most significant historic maritime discovery since the raising of the Mary Rose. Number 8. Crusader Sword. Me personally, I'm a shell guy. Love the shells, maybe rocks every now and then. I see a nice shell, I'm going for it, okay? I don't care who's living in there. I gotta listen. Sounds of the sea. But a sword that once belonged to a Crusader knight? I mean, sure, that's fun too. Shells, swords, they're both good. An Israeli scuba diver, not even that far experienced, ended up stumbling across one of the coolest discoveries back in 2021. Shlomi Katzin was diving off the Carmel coast in Israel, and as well as a badass sword, the diver also found anchors, ancient stones, pottery fragments, all from around 900 years ago. See, me myself, I wouldn't even notice this. It's covered in barnacles. It doesn't even look like a sword, other than the shape, maybe the odd shape of a sword, that's it. That's a great find. No submerged curses, no Mayan ruins, just a nice cool sword. We love that. Number 7, the Great Lakes Griffin. Back in 2018 in Lake Michigan, diver Steve Libbert found what he believed was the holy grail of Great Lakes shipwrecks. The Griffin sank back in 1679. Divers have been searching for this beauty for years and years. Now, as a kid, Steve Libbert was talking about the shipwreck when his history teacher stopped and said, "Hey, who knows? Maybe one of you will find the Griffin." Imagine that. Your grade 8 teacher tells you that somebody might find a ship, and that somebody ended up being you. Fascinating. So at 67 years old, he discovered the wreck. It was 2018, but his research began 40 years prior. It's a long time coming. Liebert began diving in 1981. Took a very long time to track this one down. So if you're in any Great Lakes, keep your eyes open for, 50-foot long ships from the late 1600s. Number 6, Magnificent Alien. Okay, tinfoil hats, put them on, folks. Now's the time. In a list of deep sea discoveries, how don't I talk about this little guy? While the rest of the world was in panic mode, a new sea sponge was discovered back in 2020. It was named Advena magnifica, which translates to magnificent magnificent alien. Yeah, this sponge literally gets its name because it looks like ET. And to be fair, it looks like an alien. It looks like a literal extraterrestrial. An ROV found this sample over 6,000 feet deep in the Pacific Ocean. They found it in what they called a forest of weird, which is a cool nickname, I guess. Cristiana Castello Branco, the researcher who found this deep sea squishy, explains the discovery in an NOAA interview, saying that all these organisms are intricately connected. By documenting and describing marine diversity, we are building a better understanding of life and the impact of humans on Earth. In this case, in the ocean. End quote. This little guy could be the key to humanity's survival. I feel it. He looks confident, doesn't he? He looks like he knows what's up. Number 4, toxic waste. We mentioned in this list a 900-year-old Crusader Sword. That was a good time, but not all discoveries are the most amazing, okay? Many deep sea ROV trips are not ideal. We don't want to discover what's going on down there. We don't want to know. We don't always find a mammoth tusk or a glow-in-the-dark shark. Sometimes we find this. Sometimes we find barrels of waste. This dump site here was discovered off the coast of LA, 3,000 feet deep. ROVs found around 27,000 barrels of toxic waste. Yeah, the 2021 discovery was deemed staggering. I'll definitely agree with that one. You can literally see this aura of toxic waste coming from all these spots. It's brutal. This is horrible. No fish in sight. Wonder why. Number 3, the Deepest Shipwreck. The USS Johnston was a US Navy destroyer which sank during the Battle of Samar in 1944. It sank after a battle with a large fleet of Japanese warships. Victor Vescovo, who is one of the few people who has made the dive into the Marianas Trench, was one of the people who first stumbled upon the remains of said sunken warship. The ship's remains were first found in 2019 and was known as the deepest known shipwreck as it was found 6,456 meters deep in the Philippine Sea in the Pacific Ocean. We now have a new record holder, believe it or not. The world's deepest shipwreck was discovered 4 miles underwater in the Philippines. The US destroyer sunk during World War II and it sits at the depth of 22,916 feet. The USS Samuel B. Roberts, or the Sammy B, probably won't be beat record-wise. This is extremely rare and so deep. I can't even fathom how deep this is. Number 2, Mayan caves. Back in 2018, a diver was exploring flooded caves in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. They were diving around and saw this peculiar opening, so they just had to check it out, right? The divers accidentally discovered one of the largest underwater cave systems in the world. That ought to be fun. It's better than a sword, I guess. A team of divers then explored many kilometers of Mayan history. Bones everywhere, a lot of bones. National Geographic, of course, got involved and explains that these skulls, given the amount found, were more than likely involved in some sort of ancient sacrifice. Yeah, they found an ancient burial site underwater. See ya, I'd go right back up so fast. Many elongated skulls were found, suggesting that the ancient Mayans were up to something a little darker last time these caves were occupied. If curses are real, there's probably a few in here, so avoid them. And finally, number 1, a cursed tablet. We'll end this list off with a super recent discovery. It's small, but it is mighty. This tablet here was discovered and it comes in at just 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. Very small. Discovered in 2022 in the West Bank, this artifact has historians scratching their heads because it's a couple hundred years older than any Hebrew text previously. It predates the Dead Sea Scrolls by 1,350 years. These ancient letters, once translated, mean to call on to anybody who breaks this curse. There's around 40 proto-alphabetic letters, early Hebrew writing, all folded onto this tiny little lead tablet. Also, the fact that this small tablet mentions the curse of Yahweh is pretty alarming. The sediment comes from excavations done in the 80s on Mount Ebal, so many believe that this is from the ancient stone structure Joshua's altar, which would make sense. The tablet was dated to around 1200 BC, and the chemical isotopes in the tablet suggest that it's from mountainous ranges in Greece, or possibly from the Mountain of Curse. Yeah, the Mountain of Curse, that's a hard pass for me. That's worse than Death Mountain in Zelda. I'm out.
And we're starting things off with the Baltic Sea UFO. In 2011, the Swedish deep sea diving team Ocean X picked up a strange sonar image while searching for a shipwreck on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. This is the image here. A lot of people think it looks a bit like the Millennium Falcon. Totally agree. When the image got out though, all kinds of tabloid newspapers started having a field day with it, saying the object looked like some form of technology, like a UFO for example, or remnants of some kind of ancient civilization. The object has been described as approximately 60 meters in diameter, resting at a depth of around 85 to 90 meters. Now, While everyone was having fun imagining what kind of fantastical ancient underwater city could have existed or what alien species could have crash landed their ships, scientists looked at the image and were like, looks like it's most likely a natural formation, so that kind of sucks. But the UFO thing hasn't been totally ruled out, so that means it's a UFO, right? Next up we have eddies, which are basically the black holes of the ocean. Eddies are basically circular currents, sort of like a whirlpool that form within the larger ocean currents. Eddies can be small or big, and when I say big, I mean some of these things can actually be seen from space, which is terrifying. Now there's not as much mystery surrounding eddies as there is with actual black holes in space. Pretty obvious where you end up if you're dragged into one of these massive sized whirlpools, but arguably scarier too, because with a black hole, at least you can hope you'd end up in some new fantastical part of space. With eddies, you just drown. And that's the other horrifying thing about these massive sized ones. Nothing can escape, just like a black hole. Anything caught up in it gets sucked in. And if you're thinking you can just wait it out, well, maybe you can, but some of these whirlpools can last for hours, days, or in some cases even years. So good luck. Number 8, the Cuban underwater city. The discovery of the Cuban underwater city was made by a Canadian company named Advanced Digital Communications, or ADC, in 2001, using advanced sonar technology. The company identified a series of geometrical structures lying about 650 meters deep off the coast of Cuba. These structures looked to be symmetrical and arranged in a grid-like pattern, almost like the layout of a city. The team returned to the site a second time with a remote underwater vehicle which was able to retrieve more sonar images which were interpreted to be various structures which didn't seem like natural formations. Some suggested this was the remnants of a lost civilization maybe, or an ancient city submerged by rising sea levels, but many marine archaeologists and geologists thought these seemingly man-made structures could also, once again, be natural formations, and given how long it would have taken for a possible ancient city to have sunk this deep, the timeline is just off. There were no known cultures able to build structures like pyramids that existed that long ago. There is still speculation till this day about this one though. And at number 7 we have the Portuguese Mana. So this thing may look like a jellyfish, but not quite. This species of Siphonophora can be found in the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, and as cool as they look, they're very dangerous. Those tentacles can grow to about like 30, even sometimes 100 feet, and they pack a punch. They contain venom-filled stinging structures which they use to paralyze their prey. Their sting is pretty excruciating, with some describing it feeling like being cauterized by a hot knife. Yikes. And although these things aren't typically lethal to humans, there have been some people who have died as a result. These things don't just cause pain, their sting has been known to cause fever, shock, and even mess with people's lung and heart activity. And even their detached tentacles have been known to still sting on occasion. Again, deaths for humans are rare, but smaller fish and crustaceans stand no chance against these things. But that's gonna bring us to number 6 with the lion's mane jellyfish, aka giant jellyfish. The lion's mane jellyfish is a big, scary bugger found in the Atlantic Ocean. Its tentacles can stretch out over 100 feet. Yeah, a giant creature that can sting you with tentacles longer than a blue whale. And those tentacles, again, are very lethal. They're armed with stinging cells that can cause extreme pain to anyone unlucky enough to get too close. They've been known to sting swimmers and even cause breathing problems if the venom gets into the air. And the lion's mane jellyfish comes in different colors. Some of them are kind of orange, a little bit red. They got big bell-like bodies that can be over 8 feet wide. And these jellies mostly hang out in colder waters where they can drift along with the currents, giving folks a surprise if they swim to one. Number 5, the Great Blue Hole. The Great Blue Hole is a renowned underwater sinkhole situated off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean Sea. It has a circular shape with a diameter of approximately 1,000 feet or 300 meters and a depth of around 410 feet or 125 meters. Formed during past ice ages when lower sea levels caused the collapse of a cave system. It's a pretty amazing sight too, because it has this very distinct deep blue color that really contrasts with the surrounding shallow waters. It's kind of freaky, but as freaky as it is, it attracts a lot of tourists and professional divers who want to go down there to check it out. Divers exploring the hole have encountered unique stalactites, limestone formations, and a number of marine species, mainly sharks. Yeah, I've seen footage. It does look beautiful, but there are a lot of sharks of various species, and that's kind of scary. Okay, time for a story. This one has to do with the Titanic. It's a personal story, actually, once again. Yeah, before I get to this, though, I'll talk a bit about the wreckage, because that's the theme of the video. I probably don't need to give any of you a history lesson on the Titanic. I'm sure most of you know more about it than I do. I haven't even seen the movie, I'll admit. But the haunting wreckage was discovered by a deep sea explorer named Robert Ballard in 1985. Fascination with the disaster began around then, and of course peaked with James Cameron's movie in 1997. All right, so interesting story here. I actually had relatives who were set to board the Titanic, but my great-grandfather, who was just a little kid at the time, at least I think it's my great-grandfather. I gotta brush up on my family history, but he had stayed out a couple nights before to watch a fire that was happening in the village they lived in. It had been raining, it was cold, and he ended up catching pneumonia, so they didn't end up leaving on the Titanic. They did leave on a boat later on, and apparently they threw flowers down over the wreckage site. Anyway, if they did board, they would not have survived. They would have been on the lower decks with Leonardo DiCaprio playing the fiddle, or whatever they did down there. Again, I have not seen the movie. But yeah, thank God, right? All of you wouldn't have little old me in your lives if things had gone a different way. How would the world cope without me in it? I don't know. And number 2, we have the Bermuda Triangle. How can we do a scary Atlantic Ocean video without bringing up the Bermuda Triangle, right? The amount of spookiness and mystery surrounding this area has made it notorious for years, with reports of mysterious disappearances of ships and aircrafts beginning back in 1950. The boundaries that make up the Bermuda Triangle are typically said to be Miami, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda, forming a triangle shape in the North Atlantic Ocean. The stories of vessels and vanishing without a trace and instruments malfunctioning within this area have stirred up a whole whack load of conspiracy theories over the years. Is there ancient technology down there messing with our equipment? Is the area cursed somehow? Now, many experts say it's got to do with just weather, strong currents. The thing is, even with all their explanations, there's still this big question mark hanging over the place. And coming in at number 1 is the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek device retrieved from a shipwreck in 1901 near the island of Antikythera. It's a complex mechanical calculator dating back to around 100 BCE. The mechanism has gears and dials, so it was probably used to track astronomical positions or predict celestial events like eclipses and planetary motions, and researchers believe it might have been used as a tool for teaching astronomy, perhaps. It's made of bronze and consists of around 30 gears with inscriptions describing the functions of the various parts. It's often referred to as the first analog computer ever discovered. It was pretty incredible because it shows a level of technological knowledge that we just did not know existed at the time, and there's still a lot of mystery surrounding it. The purpose of the device is still mostly unknown till this day. We could just kind of speculate what it was used for. Of course, there have been plenty of fun conspiracy theories surrounding this too. Was this alien technology shared with our ancestors, or are those all those years ago? Is there more of this technology that's simply been lost to time? Again, there's a lot of unexplored ocean out there. Who knows what we'll find in the years to come.
Starting us off at number 10 is a plastic bag. That's right, folks, even the deepest spot on Earth isn't free of man's worst creation ever: single-use plastics. During one of the deepest dives ever recorded, famous underwater explorer Victor Vescovo traveled 7 miles below the ocean's surface down to the Mariana Trench. While down there, Vescovo and his crew discovered tons of new and interesting things, but not all of them were cool. He reported that he also found a plastic bag and even some candy wrappers down at the deepest place on Earth. So that's cool. Folks, I don't think it's a hard concept to understand, but please don't litter. Things like plastic bags were not made to help out anyone but ourselves. These cause a great danger to our wildlife all around the world, and if we have to use these materials, just please dispose of them properly. No one else should have to put up with your trash except for the garbage man.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the fact that life exists. The first time anyone ever went on a deep dive into the Mariana Trench, no one was exactly expecting to find signs of life in the extreme environment of the deep sea. So it was quite a shock when they found out it was absolutely teeming with life. Because of the lack of sunlight, or really any light, in the Mariana Trench, you won't find any plant life or algae, but there are tons of living beings, from microorganisms to scary looking fish. All of the life in the trench has had to adapt in one way or another in order to live in this environment, whether that is naturally developing pressure-proof shells, or having insane eyesight that can catch even the faintest glimmer, or having other heightened senses that can help detect prey or predators. All of these special adaptations help us understand more about how life in the deep sea evolved, but some can even be used to help us advance scientifically and medically. It is no small feat to head down to the Mariana Trench, but the more we can discover down there, the better.
At number 8, we have Jupiter-like microbes. Say what? Back in 2012, during the Deep Sea Challenge expedition, researchers found these fuzzy mats of bacteria clinging to the rocks at the bottom of the trench. Usually one of the first things scientists look for in the harshest places on Earth are any signs of life possible. It helps them understand how life can be possible in parts of the world or even the universe that don't operate like Earth's habitable places. When scientists explored the Serena deep part of the trench with a robotic lander, they found evidence of a thriving microbial community down and around the deep sea rocks. These microbes appear to feed off of the chemicals produced with the sea when the sea floor rocks react with the water. Because they don't rely on the falling of the marine snow, it raises questions and possible hypotheses for scientists that maybe this is how some life forms exist in the farthest reach of our universe, such as Jupiter and Saturn's moons.
In our number 7 spot today, we have the Dakou Seamount. This seamount is located within the Mariana Arc and was fairly recently found to be hydrothermally active. So basically it is a functioning underwater volcano, which is super cool. That is not even the cool and unexpected discovery I want to talk about today. During the submarine Ring of Fire expedition in 2006, it was realized that this seamount happens to also feature a pool of liquid sulfur. That might not seem like the most amazing thing, but it is definitely very cool. Firstly, the way it looks is absolutely insane because it has gases rising off of it which appear as smoke, but like smoke underwater. I don't know the science behind it, but all I know is that it looks like nothing I've ever seen before. The next reason why this is super cool is because of the fact that this is almost never seen here on Earth, and the only other time we found a comparable pool of sulfur to this one has been on Jupiter's moon Io.
At number 6, we have the Mariana Snailfish. At 8,143 meters below the surface, scientists discovered a new kind of fish they call the Mariana Snailfish. This is a white translucent fish that has broad wing-like fins and an eel-like tail and slowly glides near the bottom of the ocean floor. You can also see its liver from the outside of its body. Ew. While this is the deepest they have ever found an actual fish, researchers don't believe there is much more swimming below that. The amount of pressure is so high that they don't believe any fish is chemically able to withstand the destabilizing effects of its proteins at the depth. So the Mariana Snailfish may just be the deepest dwelling fish on the entire planet, which I'm sure we are all hoping for some large, weird, space-looking like deep sea monster, but for now we will just have to settle for a snailfish. It's okay, little guy, I still love ya.
In our number 5 spot today, we have human mercury pollution. It was once believed that methyl mercury was mostly produced in the top few hundred meters of the ocean, which would have limited the mercury bioaccumulation because it was thought that the fish who make their home in the deep sea would have a very limited opportunity to ingest the methyl mercury. But a recent discovery has shown that this is just not true. According to 2 separate studies which were presented at the Goldschmidt Geochemistry Conference, there is clear evidence of the presence of both man-made man-made and natural methyl mercury, which is quite toxic. This means that since this is spreading to the absolute depths of the Mariana Trench, the pollution is turning out to be much more widespread than what was once thought. They know that it is coming from the mercury in the upper ocean because of some sort of isotope evidence. The reason this discovery is important is because when mercury reaches the depths of the sea, it is turned into methyl mercury, the super toxic one, by tiny microbes. From there it gets eaten by small crustaceans, who then get eaten by fish, who then get eaten by bigger fish, and so on and so forth, and then it gets into our food web, which is dangerous for both humans and animals. It is unclear exactly what is going to happen with this information, but I guess it's good to have the whole picture in order to make the best, most educated decisions.
At number 4 we have Ureth Plasticus. As we learned earlier, the Mariana Trench has not gone untouched by plastics. Well, back in 2014, scientists discovered a new species at 6,900 meters below, and the tiny crustacean was found to already have ingested some of Earth's plastic. Therefore, they gave it the name Ureth Plasticus. With the support of the World Wildlife Foundation in analyzing the newly discovered species, scientists found a 6.5 millimeter large piece of large microfiber made up of 80% PET in its body. PET is a substance found in a variety of commonly used household items such as water bottles and workout clothes. Now, it's also found in deep sea wildlife, so much that we're naming deep sea creatures after plastics. This one is alarming because in the deepest parts of our planet that we know the least about, even less than space, we're still finding humans making their mark before humans even get there themselves. Yikes. Let's hope we don't have to start naming species Rubberus americanus or even Coca-Cola soft drinkus.
In our number 3 spot today we have ocean sediment. Okay. There's sediment in all of our oceans, so this one definitely doesn't seem like it should be on this list, but the Mariana Trench sediment is unique because of its extreme depth. While there are of course large fish who eat other fish, what do the small fish and living creatures who don't eat other fish eat? Since there's no plants, that is why researchers collected samples of the sediment that lays on the floor of the Mariana Trench, to see what it is made out of, to see what the heck these guys are eating. As it turns out, if the organisms aren't eating chemicals, they're eating the leftovers from the fish that live closer to the surface of the ocean. These leftovers float down to the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, which is referred to as sea snow, and that is what becomes the meal for the smallest creatures living in the trench. Kind of gross when you think about it, but I'm happy for them.
Coming in at number 2 we have scalding hot water. That's right, just like Katy Perry, the Marianas Trench is hot and cold. At the deepest spot on Earth where basically no sunlight can get through, you would expect that the water was extremely cold, right? Wrong. Well, okay, maybe kind of right. The water usually stays between 34 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, but also wrong. The water at the bottom of the Mariana Trench can also get scalding hot. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench there are many different hydrothermal vents, and the water that erupts out of these vents can reach temperatures of 700 degrees Fahrenheit, which is enough to scald anyone swimming down there. But fortunately, the pressure is way too high for anyone to actually swim down there, so that won't be happening anytime soon. That being said, for those that decide to dive deep down there, make sure that the deep sea sub you're in is not only pressurized, but also has an AC, because you don't want to cook like a boiled lobster.
In our number 1 spot today we have giant amphipods. I will never not be fascinated by these things, so here we are again with more giant amphipod facts. Amphipods are little crustaceans that can be found in most waters on Earth, and they're kinda like shrimp. The Mariana Trench variety are absolutely shocking compared to the amphipods we are used to, and that is because they are like the Shaquille O'Neal of shrimps. They're huge! These guys can be found 35,797 feet or 10,911 meters deep in the trench, and while most amphipods are like 2 to 3 centimeters or about an inch long, these guys are a whopping 34 centimeters or just over 13 inches long. Like, what? A scientist explained that the discovery is a bit like finding a foot-long cockroach, and I have to say that the surprise may be the same, but I would rather find a huge shrimp than a huge cockroach any day. Before the discovery of these guys, researchers didn't even know that amphipods could grow this large, so it's safe to say that they certainly were not expecting this discovery.
Starting us off at number 10 we have sweet wrappers. Some of you might be confused and not know what that is, and if you are one of those people, they are more commonly known as candy wrappers, or trash, or even rubbish, or even garbage. I think you get it now. Anyway, along with that other plastic bag that we talked about in the first video, candy wrappers and tons of other human garbage were found in the depths of the Marianas Trench. The deepest spot on Earth is still not untouched by humans. This is a sad discovery that scientists were not thrilled about, but it was also a huge wake-up call too. So let's continue to be careful with our trash and where we put it. The plastic bag was one thing, but when I found out that that was just the beginning of the human trash that they found down there, that was a little upsetting. So stop eating sweets and candy. I'm just kidding. I know we pretty much can't do that, but just be careful where we put our garbage.
In our number 9 spot today we have sea pigs. These guys are a genus of sea cucumber, but they have these little tube-like legs, which is why they look super weird. Not that regular sea cucumbers look exceptionally normal, but these ones look even weirder than the regular ones. They like to live on the seafloor where they move through the sediment searching for their next meal. They eat by extracting tiny little particles of organic matter that have fallen from closer to the surface of the ocean down to the mud on the seafloor. They're like the best little Roombas. Sea pigs tend to measure somewhere around 15 centimeters or 4 to 6 inches long, and they live at a depth of somewhere between 1,200 to 5,000 meters deep in the sea. These guys have their own special little defense mechanism, and that is how their skin carries a natural poison, which would make them a less than ideal meal for their predators. It is quite imperative that these guys stay in their deep sea habitat because they are specifically built for that, and when brought up closer to the surface, they disintegrate.
Coming in at our number 8 spot, we have robots. Say, what? Are the AIs finally taking over? Are aliens actually just ancient robots like the Autobots and Decepticons? What is going on down there? Well, none of those that we know of, but the reason why we have been able to search and discover new areas of our oceans at such great depths is because scientists and researchers have started using robots, or more commonly known as rovers down at the bottom of the ocean. Just like the rovers we use on the moon and Mars, these underwater rovers can go where humans cannot, as well as retrieve materials that we would never be able to retrieve by ourselves. So as nervous as I am about the robots taking over, I have to tip my hat to them in this regard. So thanks, robo dudes.
In our number 7 spot today we have the Hydromedusa. This fancy pants jellyfish came as quite a surprise during a robotic exploration of the Mariana Trench in 2016. What at first looked like some sort of alien spacecraft turned out to be a new unidentified species of jellyfish. At a first sight, this jelly had its tentacles splayed out as if it was ready to catch some prey. Apparently the tentacles act as a sort of netting to ensnare and then subdue their potential prey, but this jelly quickly calmed down and continued floating on by. This guy was found near the Enigma Seamount at a depth of 3,700 meters. The really interesting thing about this jelly is in its bell. While the bell itself is translucent, inside are glowing red and yellow bulbs of light. The glowing bulbs of light really do give it an otherworldly appearance, and it is simply amazing to look at.
At number 6, we have a retired US Navy officer. Yeah, you heard me. Victor Vescovo is a retired US Navy officer and is one of the 70 people on Earth who have earned the Explorer's Grand Slam title. After Vescovo retired from the Navy, he became a private equity investor with a humongous interest in exploring the wildest places on Earth. He has completed the 7 summits exploring the highest points on Earth from each continent, and most recently completed the 5 Deeps expedition, where he visited the 5 deepest points on Earth, one of them being, of course, the Marianas Trench. In 2019, in the expedition known as the Challenger Deep, Vescovo and his team visited the deepest point on Earth during that expedition at 11 kilometers below the ocean's surface and earned Guinness World Records for their explorations. Vescovo helped fund to hire the amazing team he had on board, as well as to build the latest high-tech submarine to reach such depths. They were at an area of ocean that is 1,000 times the pressure of the surface. Big ouch. So if you want to get deep, I suggest you take Victor Vescovo with you.
Coming in at number 5, at our halfway mark, we have comb jellies. Comb jellies are one of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen in my life, and that is mostly due to their combs. The combs I'm talking about are actually plates of fused cilia, which help these jellies propel themselves through the deep waters of the Mariana Trench like their own little boat oars. There are other creatures who also have combs, but these jellies are the largest creatures with them. Why these jellies are so beautiful is because the combs create a sort of rainbow effect because of the light being scattered in different directions because the cilia are moving. Comb jellies only have one pair of tentacles, but sometimes it appears to be more, but that is because their tentacles can branch out. These jellies don't sting, and instead their tentacles are used as a sort of fishing line to help them catch their prey.
Coming in at number 4 is James Cameron. Wait, hold on a sec. Olivia, did I just say Academy Award winning director James Cameron was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench?
You did!
I did! Yes, I did. That was so dumb. Oh my god, hashtag fire Dewey. Along with making one of his most famous movies ever about an old boat, it was also his lifelong dream of exploring the depths of the Marianas Trench. This guy just can't get enough of the underwater life, and honestly, I can't blame him because it looks super cool. Anyway, back in 2012, Cameron with the team of scientists visited the trench at a depth of 11 kilometers as well. Wait, isn't that the exact same depth as Victor Vescovo? Yeah, kind of. Vescovo was able to reach just a bit further than Cameron, so this time the Oscar goes to Victor. Sorry, Jimbo. But Cameron also helped design a 24 underwater submersible sub called the Deep Sea Challenger in the shape of Titanic. Just kidding, that would be insensitive. The windows on the sub were 9.5 inches thick, so they could withstand the immense pressure. While down there, they discovered 68 new species, mostly of bacteria, but also a couple invertebrates as well. So there you go. James Cameron is just not a one-trick pony.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the barrel eye. I can talk about creatures that look otherworldly all day, and while the Mariana Trench is full of them, the barrel eye is definitely nearing the top of that list. These guys are also known as spookfish, and they have these large, protruding, telescopic eyes that are enclosed in a transparent dome of soft tissue. That was a long way of saying they have a see-through head, and it is so weird to look at. These guys can't be taken out of their deep sea environment because they are unable to withstand the change in pressure, so for a while after their initial discovery, the only way people who had seen them in the deep sea could show anyone else what they looked like was through drawings. Imagine trying to tell someone that you found a fish with a see-through head, but you have no evidence to prove it. These guys are usually found motionless, just kind of floating in one spot, as they don't tend to move around a bunch, at a depth of around 600 to 800 meters in the ocean.
Coming in at our number 2 spot is the unknown. There is still plenty of unknown left in the Marianas Trench. Countless people have now explored down there, but the water is just above freezing and it is extremely dark, and the pressure is an immense 8 tons per square inch. Holy burst eardrums, Batman! With all the tech that we have today, we are still doing all that we can to find new ways of exploring the ocean depths for longer and with more visibility. It's hard to say just how much we have really uncovered when we can only go down there for so long and with just our little rovers, subs, flashlights, and Hollywood directors. Either way, I can't wait to see where scientists take us on this next one, and who knows, maybe one day I will get my confirmed sea monster that I've been waiting for my entire freaking life.
In our number 1 spot today, we have the predatory tunicate. The predatory tunicate is like the Venus flytrap of the deep sea. These guys are one of the most unique creatures I've ever learned about personally, because I don't know any other animal that is like them. They start out life kind of like tadpoles, and then they swim until they find their perfect spot, either along a canyon wall or on the sea floor. Once they've found their spot, they plant themselves in place using a natural adhesive that they produce. Once planted, they will undergo a huge change, and this is where they will stay for the rest of their lives. They're super picky about where exactly they make their homes because it will be where they stay, and because they need to make sure that both the chemicals in the water in that area as well as the temperature of the water is just right. Like the 3 little bears of the deep sea. Unfortunately, if these guys get moved from the location they choose to make their home, they will die, so it is imperative that they are left alone. They basically wait for food to drift on by, and like a Venus flytrap, when they get their meal, their mouths will snap shut until they're done digesting. The predatory tunicate is a point of study in the medical world because they actually have been known to help with some more serious medical conditions, which is always an incredible thing.
Number 9. Humanoid creatures. So the year is 1982. And Russian military divers are conducting routine training exercises in the deep, dark waters of Lake Baikal, the world's deepest freshwater lake. These divers reported encountering something they couldn't wrap their heads around: humanoid creatures. Survivors stated the beings were about 9 feet tall, with humanoid features and silvery scales or suits covering their bodies. Some even say they had large, unblinking eyes that emitted an eerie glow. Now, the official stance is predictably hush hush. The Soviet government supposedly classified any information related to this incident, which of course just turned cryptid and UFO enthusiast cranks even more. What makes a possible extraterrestrial or mythical creature sighting more plausible than a government cover-up? And at number 8, we have a story posted to Reddit by user Digestives Rule. This was in response to a thread asking divers what the creepiest thing they'd experienced while diving was. Digestives Rule wrote, "I'm a commercial diver, and was once on a job cleaning a portable water reservoir. I'd been in other reservoirs before, but this one was by far the biggest, at 40 by 80 meters. To get in, you had to open a hatch in the ground. The whole reservoir was underground, and climb down a ladder. The hatch was in a corner, so when you were in the far corner of the reservoir, it was completely pitch black, and you just had to hope your light didn't go out. I was about halfway through a 3-hour dive when the batteries in my torch started going flat. I watched the beam get narrower and dimmer until it cut out completely. It's not a huge problem if you lose light, as you can just follow your umbilical back to the hatch. Just as I started walking back, some obnoxiously loud banging started somewhere in the reservoir. I was the only diver in there, so it both confused and scared the out of me. Needless to say, I ran back to the hatch as fast as I could. I ended up getting my torch changed out and doing another hour in the water, but I didn't hear the noise again. I still have no idea what it was, but the combination of my torch going out and loud banging coming from somewhere gave me a hell of a fright. Next up on the list, we have underwater pyramids in Cuba. There is a lot of controversy surrounding the so-called underwater pyramids off the coast of Cuba, discovered by oceanographer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinswig in 2000. These structures lie at a depth of around 2,000 feet. So when images of this underwater site were first released, people looked at them and were like, that looks like some kind of underwater pyramid or something. Are these structures that maybe are part of some ancient lost civilization? The mysterious alignment of the structures has also led some to propose extraterrestrial involvement. The idea that maybe these pyramids could be part of an ancient alien civilization's underwater base. Just like with many cases of this kind, some also claim that governments and mainstream archaeologists are suppressing information about the site to maintain the status quo. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have, of course, these skeptics. They basically just said these are natural formations, and what folks are seeing is just a case of pareidolia. While many remain skeptical about the existence of an advanced ancient civilization beneath the waves, looking at these images, you really can't deny how uncanny some of these formations look. And number 4, we have Bimini Road. Bimini Road, discovered off the coast of North Bimini Island in the Bahamas in 1968, has again a lot of controversy surrounding it. It consists of a series of rectangular limestone blocks arranged in a linear pattern, looking almost like a road. The discovery was first made by pilots flying over the area, and then underwater expeditions confirmed the existence of the submerged structure. Now, according to mainstream scientists, Bimini Road consists of beach rock, a result of sand and shell fragments cementing over time. So many of them believe it isn't man-made, but there are more interesting theories. Some propose an Atlantis connection, that maybe the structure is a remnant of the mythical lost city. There's just too many straight lines and right angles in the formation for it to be some natural occurrence. And there are theories not linked with Atlantis, the possibility of some other advanced prehistoric civilization predating the known cultures. And because the internet exists and there are people with all kinds of crazy ideas all over the globe, there are even more outlandish theories about this formation, some claiming technological anomalies associated with the stones, like unusual magnetic fields and unexplained energy readings. Alright, back to some mysterious creature stuff though. The yellow belly sea monster. On September 11th of 1876, Captain John K. Webster and James Anderson aboard the Nestor saw something they'd truly never forget. It was an unidentified sea creature while off the coast of Malaysia. They described the thing as about 60 to 100 feet in length. It looked a bit like a large tadpole with a flat necklace head. It didn't seem to have any fins or flippers either, and its yellow skin had a prominent black stripe running along its spine. About 9 years later, on October 4th of 1885, a similar creature was observed in South Africa. Witnesses reported a 90-foot creature with yellow skin, black stripes, but this creature had fins on either side. In 1965, Bernard Heuvelmans, a Belgian-French scientist, explorer, researcher, also often referred to as the father of cryptozoology, looked at these two sightings and then categorized the creature as the yellow belly. He believed it could be an unknown shark species or possibly an amphibian, creating a classification for tadpole-like sea monsters on a bigger scale. Of course. The most famous yellow belly sighting, though, occurred on December 12th of 1964 near Hook Island, Queensland. Robert Lasarick and his family, along with a friend, spotted an 80-foot creature in the shallow water. At first they thought it was dead because of a visible wound, but it opened its mouth and began swimming towards their boat. The creature had smooth, dark skin with brown stripes, no visible fins or teeth, and slit-shaped pupils. Then the family just got out of there. At number 2, we have the underwater Stonehenge. Off the shores of Lake Michigan lies an intriguing underwater discovery known as the underwater Stonehenge. Researchers came across the site while using sonar technology to explore the lake's floor. The underwater formation features a cluster of stones arranged in a circular or horseshoe-type pattern, looking a lot like the renowned Stonehenge in England. In terms of the mainstream scientific world, experts propose that the stones may be natural geological formations. That always seems to be their go-to. People will be like, ah, look at this, and then they're like, it's natural, it's natural. While others think that this site might hold evidence of an ancient civilization predating recorded history. The stones seem to be placed in this very precise alignment, and of course, Atlantis always comes into the conversation. Finally though, we have another story posted to Reddit. This one by user Tamu. Actually, we have 2 short stories here. They go as follows. This isn't my story, but my dad's. So when he was in grad school, he did some field studies classes, some of which involved diving in Monterey Bay. One day he was diving, counting something off the Santa Cruz Pier, and he finds a shopping cart with bricks and cinder blocks and a chain attached to the handle. He naturally followed the chain and found a bare foot wrapped in the chain. He assumes something probably ate the rest of the body, and apparently his friends had seen similar things too. Also not mine, but my dad's friend. He says he was on a shelf counting mussels when he felt something tap his tank. He looked around, didn't see anything. He figured it was a seal, because they like to play. When he was nudged again, he saw it was a great white. He says he thought to himself, if it gets me, it gets me. I can't outswim it. Now, I don't know if he was actually that chill. I sure wouldn't be, but that's how he tells it. So that second story really gets me. Like, the foot is super creepy, but turning around to see a great white right next to you, and you're in its habitat, and you just have that acceptance of like, there's nothing I can do in this situation. That is fear on like a true primal level. Yeah, spooky.